Okay, we are now live on Facebook. So it is November 18th, Wednesday. This is our fourth episode of Reflection Artist Live, and we have our special guest with us, Brian Crosby. He is out of Atlanta, Georgia. He is the owner of Detail Link, and he's been in the industry for 28 years strong. He's a huge influence in the industry, especially amongst distributors and storefront, and he has huge success with that, which we'll dive into later. But just to give you a quick background that I'm sure he'll reiterate, but again, 28 years in the industry. He started doing this when he was 15 years old, out of high school. He has, 2 years of ownership of doing mobile detailing, going into, the car wash side of things, and just understanding the ins and outs of how our industry works from different platforms of detailing. And he's been on a route truck for years. I mean, he has all those different areas that he's covered and getting the experience at a level that not most are able to, which is really neat. So his feedback is huge in regards to value of what his experiences are. So thanks, Brian, and welcome. And why don't you give us a little rundown on more involvement of your history and what got you into detailing, starting from that age of 15 when you were just a youth getting into this.
Well, hey, thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored. Appreciate it very much. So, yeah, I started at a car wash when I was freshman in high school. It was like the place to work at. Um, from wiping off cars, prepping them. Eventually, they moved me into being the ticket writer, so I sold all the services, and the detail shop literally was the two bays off of where we rode all the cars coming into the car wash. We vacuumed in the front. We were one of the first car washes. This is back, you know, 89, 90 that had actually vacuums in the front. And that was a trend that didn't really hit the car wash market until early 2000s, just the way the owner designed the car wash.
Hey,
So,
you were ahead of the game if you had vacuums on site during that time.
well, yeah. So, I mean, this was a traditional like 120-foot, Sonny's tunnel at the time, um, where we're hand prepping wheels and we loaded it onto the track and then the car would send through. We'd go through the dryer, but we still wipe it off, wipe up the door jambs, vacuum it, windows, tire shine, traditional full service car wash. But when they stuck me as
Nice.
a ticket writer, I liked it. I made great commission money as a ticket writer, but I was next to the detail shop all the time. It was very intriguing. I was always looking around the corner. What are they doing?
What magic's going on
Yeah,
back there,
well, what's
right?
going on there? That's where the cool kids work. So that led me to ask more and more questions about what was going on there. And then the guy that was in there, the guy's name was Dorian at the time, and he brought me in. He was, middle-aged guy, had been doing it for 20 years, and we're in there running I call them the door weights now, the gem orbital polishers, the 18, 15-pound gem orbital polishers. That's what I started on. And then he
Big
showed me,
boys.
yeah, yeah. I literally have one propping open my door right now.
Yeah. Who
Um,
needs a shake weight these days when you got a gem orbital polisher, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, um, he kind of during slow periods, I'd run in there like, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" And that led me to learning all the stuff about detailing the way he did it. And he came from a dealership background and ended up working in this full service detail shop at a car wash in the town I grew up in. So I just watched. It was intriguing. I wanted to do it, and that led to me being in the detail shop. My senior year of high school, working there after school and um, during the summer months. And then basically, when I got out of high school, I was that kid I knew wasn't going to do well in college. I would have either drank my way through it or partied too much and gotten kicked out. So my parents and grandparents, like, we were going to go to school. I was like, I don't think so. I want to try to do this car detailing business on the side. So I literally, with a loan from my grandfather, he gave me $10,000. I went out and I bought a trailer and a pressure washer and a generator, and I put all this stuff on this trailer, and
and
off I
and
went.
not to cut you off, but think about too that time frame. How difficult was it to get those items? It wasn't where you could just go to a place that's plug and play that says, "Yeah, we could do this for you." I mean, was it, or was it? I mean, compared to
So
now, anybody could just go to a place like yours and you could bundle it all together for them. It
yeah,
wasn't like
back
that.
back then, their traditional like detail sales companies, you didn't go to their warehouse. So the first thing I found was this company called Protect Polishing Systems, and they sold me, a compound, a polish, and a wax or sealant that they called it at the time. And they said it would guarantee a year, right? It was their Teflon sealant. So it was like, $1,800 package. You went in for a day's training and you bought the stuff, and you ended up with stuff, and it actually worked pretty well for what it was. Um,
I like
So
that
I bought
approach, the integrated training with the product. So they're,
yeah. I mean, so if you think about it, they were kind of even ahead of the game then.
Yeah.
They were selling a system.
Yes.
So I bought the system and it worked well, but that led me to look like what's better than this. And I'm always trying to look at everything in a 3, 5, and 10-year view. What's 3 years out, 5 years out, and 10 years out.
Yep.
So as I started shopping around, this is really even before the internet was like people weren't selling anything on the internet, but you're still looking. And I was always trying to talk to other people that did what I was doing. Like, how are you doing this? Where are you buying? I've always been that guy. I was always trying to make a friend with everybody. Like, hey, how do you do this? What are you doing different? And if I could learn anything from anybody, it was a good thing. So I did the mobile detail thing, was quite successful. I handed out flyers at my dry cleaners that my girlfriend worked at the time. She had flyers up front. So all these soccer moms would come in like, oh, I want my car cleaned. He'll come to my driveway. And within 6 months, it led me into making a contact with a used car manager at a car dealership. He's like, hey, Brian, I'll pay you to clean my cars. I was like, great, steady, wholesale revenue. It's going to pay the bills. So I ended up sharing a building with a used car dealer. At the time, he was like a Highland wholesaler. So I got his cars, and then several other wholesale dealers were sending me their cars. So what started off as a one-man operation, I had 4 employees, like almost overnight, cleaning up. We were doing anywhere between 6 and 8 cars a day. But this is wholesale work. You were getting like a $100 to $125 a car. It wasn't anything great, but you were still working on the car for 4 or 5 hours. And I was splitting. I was paying my employees like a flag time, 50% of whatever the car paid. And then I was covering all the expenses on the other side. So a year and a half into doing that, I was just felt overwhelmed. I was 20 years old. I just turned 20 and I was like, this is not for me. And I was watching all my friends off at college, having a great time partying. And so I had a guy approach me about buying my business. I sold it.
Oh,
thinking I was going to go to college. And I didn't. I ended up hanging out with one of my buddies down in Florida. I blew the money in about 90 days that I got.
Damn Florida boys.
Yeah. Between offshore fishing and nightlife, the money I got from my business, it lasted me about 90 days. So
where'd you go? Fort Lauderdale?
Yes. I came home pretty much broke and busted. And my dad looked at me and goes, what are you going to do now? I said, I don't know. I'll go find a job. So ironically, the guy I was buying chemicals from called me up and he's like, hey, I want you to come work for me. And I was like, I don't want to work for you. I want to go figure out, I want to make my own path. He goes, no. I'll set you up as a sub distributor. So it sounded intriguing. And, I went out and I bought a big box truck, put shelves in it and loaded up with products. And I just started going dealership to dealership to dealership. Hey, I'm Brian. I know how to do this. Let me sell you product. And that's literally how that began at, age 20. And this is back when distributors were single lines, so I originally was selling Automagic products. And I did that for about 4.5 years. So that was from 92. I'm looking at my notes here from my LinkedIn page. So I did that from, hang on 1 second here, from 92 to 96. And a competitor in town in 96 started courting me like, hey, come work for us. You can be our senior guy. You can run our whole Southeastern division. And that at the time was Blue Coral Systems. So Blue Coral had route trucks they ran in the Atlanta market and in the LA market. And it was a good operation. It gave me the opportunity to branch off and start selling car wash chemicals inside of automated tunnels. And that intrigued me because it was something new, but I had a background in it from my high school days. So I understood the operations of it, but I didn't understand the chemistry side of it. But they were willing to teach me. And
that's such a big market too. It's huge compared to detailing.
It's probably tenfold. I mean, there's car wash companies now that sell $100 million. I mean, a year in just annual revenue. It's crazy. And, they're building express tunnels or full service tunnels on every other corner. Seems like, at least here in Georgia, in the Southeastern market, there's more car washes per capita than even in California or Texas, which are the predominantly big markets. So,
they got a lot more restrictions now too versus what we have, but you're right. Yeah. I see it here in Florida. There's car washes popping up like there are McDonald's on every corner.
Yep. And well, and you know, everybody thinks there are these amazing revenue streams, and they are if run properly.
Yes.
You know, the express model seems to be the predominant model, and it has been for the last 10 years. Small amount of labor, you're not getting a high revenue ticket per car, but you're getting a monthly club member. And there are these express washes that'll have 6,000 and 7,000 members, but at $35 or $40 a month, on the first of every month, you're a couple hundred grand, you know, right off the rip. And it's, yeah, I use an express car wash. I live in, I joke with people, I live in reality. I got 3 kids at home. So the idea of hand washing my car and my driveway, I just don't have time for it.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that to me. Even in your testing with coatings and things like
Yeah.
that, you're putting them on those same vehicles that you're running through to know, hey, this is pushing the envelope, but it's working.
Well, I have this philosophy about coatings. I think coatings are, you know, obviously they're a great thing. And people have to decide, are they a coating purchaser because it's the ultimate protection, or are they ultimate cleanability? So I want a clean car all the time. I'm that guy that rides through my express car wash 3 or 4 times a week. It's down the street from my house. You know, it's $33 a month. I have a coating on it. I'm willing to correct and recoat my vehicle every 24 months because that's about the time frame that I see where the car wash is really leaving marring or wisping behind. That's where I see like, all right, that's the point where I'll repolish it and recorrect it. But what I found is with the coatings and using it that way, all the damage is in the coating. It's not necessarily in the clear. And as you're compounding off the coating that you've put down, you got fresh paint again. You just recoat it, and then as you ride through the car wash, the damage is being taken by that barrier of the coating, and it's the sacrificial layer. So that's how I view the coating world. I mean, there's the guys that sell coatings, and you know, I'll give you all these years of warranty, and that's great. I'm not knocking that. I think it's a good thing. But I'm that guy that uses like, hey, I want my car to be clean. The car cleans easier, faster, and I've always done 2 math equations with people. If you paid a mobile detailer to come wash your car and you wanted your car cleaned regularly, how much would that mobile wash be? $50, $75? Well, if you had that done once a week times 4 weeks, okay, and then you times that by 24 months, it's expensive. And then you add a correction and coating on top of it. If you did the math the other way at $33 a month, okay, and a correction and coating, let's just say at $1,500 every other year and $33 a month, the math comes out to be about $100 a month cost to the consumer versus 300 plus for a mobile guy. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just, this is the math that works for me.
Yeah. And that's well calculated advice in regards to coatings, and not to get too far off, but I want to revisit, and we'll revisit that, but I also want to continue back on what you were saying too, which you got the route and you started picking up and you noticed, you know, working for that other gentleman at that point. Where did you go from there?
So I got recruited away and went to work for Blue Coral Systems. There was about 80 guys of us in this company all across the country. And there was 10 of us inside of a group that were the detail group. Okay. Basically 5 that were here in the Southeast and then 5 that were in the Southern California market. So we always collaborated. And I mean, I'm still friends with a lot of these guys today. Cheeto now works for McGuire's. He's a corporate rep for them. One of the other guys that's out there, his brother Roman, is still a ZEP vehicle care rep. So he does car wash. The guys that I dealt with here on the East Coast, they're around. They're just doing other things inside the car wash market. So we all kind of grew up in this market. So I spent basically almost 11 years at Blue Coral, which was purchased by Ecolab. So big, you know, Fortune 100 company bought this, you know, little fledgling car wash group. Okay. And in Ecolab's world, if you weren't $100 million company, you were considered an experiment, which sounds crazy. You know, you think about it, but they had 13 different divisions. They were in anything from institutional, janitorial, water reclamation, cleaning, multiple. They had their fingers in everything. You know, if you were in the military, your clothes were washed with the Ecolab soap. If you went to McDonald's, you saw K Chemical, the hand soap, that's Ecolab. They're in anything you can imagine, they own it. And they were very good about buying companies, leaning them out, making them more efficient. And then if they liked them, they would keep them. And if they didn't, they would sell them off. So they eventually, after I left, sold that company to Zepp, and it's now Zepp Vehicle Care Division inside of Zepp. And I'm still a distributor for them to this day. So I left Ecolab in 2006. I was kind of, the corporate life wasn't for me. It was good while it lasted. I loved it. They taught me a ton of stuff.
Yeah. It ran its term. You absorbed the knowledge.
Yeah, and it was just time for me to do my own thing. So I literally I went to Fidelity. I cashed out $100,000 out of my 401k. That was humbling because I said, I'm here to get this money out, and they handed me a check for $56,000. I was like, where's the other? So taxes and 10% withdrawal penalty.
The penalty.
Yes. So I walked out of there like,
damn,
lost out my money. So I started a company. I went and bought QuickBooks. I got a computer. I knew how to sell all this stuff. Running my business became then my Achilles heel. That's where I struggled, man. In my business, it went from nothing to $50,000 a month overnight, because all my old customers were like, well, we want to buy from you. And I was competing against my old company. I took 90% of my book of business in 90 days.
Damn.
And then it grew and grew. And I added another truck in 6 months and hired a buddy, and we were just moving. We were rolling. I went $100,000 in credit card debt, keeping up with my receivables and my inventory. I've since paid that debt way off years ago.
That's because you got so much going out and so much demand of what needs to come in and to balance that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the 56,000 I started with, okay, that was initial inventory, operational money and stuff like that. And then going from zero upwards rapidly, I couldn't keep up with my cash flow.
Yeah.
And so it was like credit card after credit card, buying up inventory, and 2 years into it, we're clicking along, we're selling $80,000, $90,000 a month. And I'm like, God, how am I going to pay off all this stuff? And I started realizing that I needed a business mentor, and I sought out several different guys. I'm like, help me. I understand how to sell this stuff. I need help running my business. And that relationships that I, sought out, they helped me even out, straighten out everything I was doing, make myself efficient, teach me the stuff I didn't know that I should have learned in school, but I didn't go. So, school hard knocks, I've lived through it. I feel like I got a PhD. It was totally the best learning experience I could have ever had. One of the guys is my business mentor now. He works for me. He's retired. He comes in and helps run my administration stuff. And
very nice.
Does it a couple days a week. And he was retired for about 4 years. He was bored. He says, I can't play any more golf. I'm going to come work for you. And I was like, I can't afford you. He goes, I don't really care. I'm coming to work for you. So he works for me and helps me out. It's like the greatest blessing I have.
Oh yeah. Relationships are everything, right?
Yeah. So that's where I'm at now. So now my business is 14 years and 8 months old. It'll be 15 years in April this coming year. We're strong. We're growing every year. Obviously, 2020 was kind of a April, May, we're kicking the nuts.
Yeah.
I think everybody had that.
Absolutely.
And it's progressing. I mean, everything's coming back. I'm curious to see what the fall brings us in wintertime. Like I say, I don't know, but I feel like we're at least headed in the right direction. And whoever's in office, as long as House and Congress kind of stays the way it is, I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of changes to business and regulations and taxes and stuff like that. So I feel like for at least for the next 2 years, things are going to be going well. That's the way I'm hoping and predicting and investing towards that.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at other chemical lines and stuff to bring on, like what can make my business better, because I sell myself in Atlanta.
It keeps you relevant.
Yeah. I want to be relevant, and I sell myself in Atlanta. And this is my analogy towards Jerry Maguire movie. I want to be, I'm not going to be the cheapest guy in town, but I'm going to be the guy that I'll train you for free. I sell the premium brands. I'm willing to spend time, work with your employees, customers, show them how to be more efficient. And my sales pitch is, if I make your team more efficient, then the byproduct of what I do, the expense of what I charge you for products is irrelevant because I teach them how to use it properly. And then the use cost goes down. People are so much concerned in the detail market is how cheaply can I buy this for? And they should really not be looking at that. They should be looking at what is my use cost for this item? What does it actually make? How much am I able to use of it? And then that's the cost, not what it costs me by the gallon or by the bottle.
And I'm sure you experienced that on the trucks. You'd get guys that come in right on the truck. What's the cheapest wax you got? That's the first thing that they would ask, when wax was the relevant form of protected vehicles, that, that's what's the cheapest, the one degreaser, how concentrated is it? How much can I get out of it? It's not about what it does in the performance.
Explaining use cost is, I live and die by it, but there's people in our world that they don't see through the math, even though the math is plain as day.
Yeah. You can't change the numbers.
It can't change the numbers. The numbers are the one thing in the life that doesn't lie. It's the science, or 1 + 1 is always 2. So if they just can't see, that's why I have a good, better, best offering. Okay, I have a premium, a middle of the road, and then I have the guys that can't see through the economics of it, and they want the cheapest thing out there. I have that for them too. So I'm trying to cater to basically 3 different groups of people. In theory. Okay. But then I sell into 3 different segments, or really 4 different segments of business. I sell to new and used car dealerships. I sell to car wash tunnels or express and full serve. I sell to body shops, and then I sell to detail shops and mobile guys. So I'm kind of 4 streams of revenue. If you think about it that way, or 4 different ways that we go to market and who we focus on. Primarily focus is on the car dealership. Secondary focus is on the detail market, and then full service, and then body shop last. Body shop is really where I'll probably be focusing a lot of time in the future. I feel like people that sell paint skip right over the detail stuff, and it's something that I've learned. And then, we're even going off and selling into other industries now. I sell to a lot of funeral homes.
Shiny caskets?
Not only shiny caskets. Have you ever seen a dirty hearse?
No, not really.
If there were ever a sideline community, this is going to sound crazy, inside the detail industry, people that run funeral homes are diehard car clean guys. They love it. That they actually do it during their downtime.
Their prices must be killer.
Well, I have a close. I've made really one of my close friends that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. He owns and runs a funeral home, and I went back in the garage where they stored everything. He's got a wall vacuum system mounted up. He's got buffers. And I go, where'd you get all this stuff? He goes, what do you think I do when I'm not, embalming bodies or running funerals? I gotta have something to do. And this is the best way to kill my time. And all his cars look good. But he was buying his stuff at Pet Boys or AutoZone. He
based on the recommendation of the counter guy.
Yes. And so when he met me, he's like, I was trying to explain. He goes, oh, I want to buy stuff from you. Where's your place at? And then that being a close-knit community too, he started introducing me to all the people. Just like detailers all know one another, that industry, they all know one another. I mean, there's basically a funeral home, if you think about it, in every town. Well, those guys know each other. They're part of their own associations. So it's just, it's turned to be like, this crazy revenue stream that I never thought would be there. It's just different places. And then trying to sell, products to fire departments or municipalities. Those guys all have fleet vehicles.
Yeah.
And they're all keeping them clean. Like Georgia State Patrol, I sell to them here. They regularly have prison detail guys out there cleaning their cars up. They buy soap, tire dressing, and all purpose. And they buy it all the time. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, those, especially at the fire department, there's a lot of downtime in making sure that they take care of those, all their vehicles.
Well, I know you've seen this. How many guys are in that line of work are detailers on the side? Absolutely. Every firefighter I've ever met has a side hustle.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean.
So now, with your business, how long have you had a shop, or did you start with a shop, or how did that work when you were, with your current with Detail Link right now?
So originally, I started my warehouse was in my garage at my first house, and 3 weeks into it, I couldn't keep anything more in my garage or my basement. I was literally stacking pallets outside my garage, and my neighbors are like, what's going on over there? So my best friend is a car dealer, and he had a warehouse, and he's like, hey, you can put stuff in here. I'll help you out. Well, a month later, I'd taken it over. And I was like, I'll just pay the lease, and he was very generous to do that. It was still in his name. He was trying to help me out. So I stayed in this warehouse for about 15 months, outgrew it. And then I got my first warehouse. It was like 3,000 square feet. And we went in there and we painted the walls. And I bought one section of pallet rack. And I bought a motorized pallet jack that would lift up 3 tiers and put pallets up. And I thought I'd arrived. I was like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. So over the years, we pallet racked that place out, and I couldn't do anything more there. And let's see, about 3.5 years ago, I moved to an adjacent building inside my complex. It's 6,000 square feet. So I now have a full-fledged retail storefront. And then I have about 5,000 square feet that's dedicated to warehouse. And then I built out a training studio. So
very nice.
Everything, all the tools are there. You want to buy a tool from me. First thing is, hey, I'm going to show you each one. Come in. You can run a flex. You can run a Rupes. You can run, Porta-Cable, DeWalt, rotary. I have them all. They're tools that I own or my loaner fleet. Like, hey, test drive each one. Let me show you some real proper techniques to use them. And I have demo hoods that I've acquired and, hood stands, and they're able to do that. And then, that space is, it takes up space. It's, about 700 square feet. So it's a bay. And when I'm not using it, I got a mobile guy that rents it out from me, and he does his coating. He really specializes in like interior restoration and odor removal. That's his kind of niche. So he's doing like cigar and, cigarette odor removal stuff and like specialty stain removals. That's his thing. So he rents out the bay for me when I don't use it for training. So that helps offset my lease on my building.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, with having that storefront, have you noticed a huge impact from not only just the detailers, but even like you said, like, maybe the firemen or anybody like the funeral home where they come in, and it's one thing to see it in the box truck, but it's another thing to see it in the storefront where there's a lot more presentation available to appeal.
I actually feel like the storefront model is what will be the future. Storefront, e-commerce, the route truck business, as I see it, is shrinking. We're in a situation where we're trying to train or educate our route truck customer to either buy online or place orders in advance. And we're still running route trucks. I've just downsized them. I'm no longer in a large cube van running around. We're running in smaller transit or sprinter van style. It's a large van, but we're able to put enough inventory on it to sell for a day. We don't carry drums on it. I run a pickup truck for that. And turn that off. Sorry. So, combination, I have e-commerce side of my website where I'm selling off the internet, 2 to 3 route trucks running at any time. And then the storefront, and where I'm pretty much hanging my hat most of the time. And I go out and see customers regularly, 3 or 4 days a week, trying to, find new business, drum up new business for my route truck sales. But my storefront sales have been, crazy growth vertical. And when I first did it, I wasn't running Google AdWords. I didn't know anything about that. This has been my next learning curve, the e-commerce side of the world, understanding, now I have people come in all the time, that are the home enthusiast guy, like, hey, I got my Corvette, I want to wash it. What do I need? I'm like, yeah, you need buckets, grit guards, dirt locks, wash mitts, good soap. You want a foam cannon. I even sell Kranzel pressure washers. And these guys are outfitting their garage, similar. Kudos to Matt Mormon for what he does. He sells these guys on these dream garages, which are way cool.
I just had a gentleman that we did a coating for on his brand new Type R that is a huge fan of Matt and following him, and he's decking out his garage because of everything he's seen Matt do.
Yeah, so Matt was at an event. We had an event yesterday for a chemical line that's launching here in the U.S., Kosh Chemi. Matt was there. A bunch of other guys in the industry were there. Jason Otterness, Grant Menard, Jim Hutton, Andy Be Cool. So this was all stuff that we were doing yesterday, and Matt was there. And I'm kind of inspired by his story. What he's created is this amazing thing, but that has trickled down to guys like myself and yourself, and anybody in the industry, it's like cleaning your cars become cool to, to even what more than what we thought it would be. Right. So, you know, I sell these oddball things that I didn't think I would sell, pressure washers or, 5-gallon buckets. I have all this stuff, but, I now have guys come in all the time. They're like, hey, I just bought this new C8. I want to take care of it myself. What do I need? And $400 or $500 later, they're walking out the door and they're happy and they're like, got all this stuff. And they're over there, 2-bucket method and foam cannon washing their car. They're in love with it. I'm like, it makes me happy. So, that's all the stuff that I'm doing now out of the storefront. And it's become almost what a route truck business sales are a month. And now I'm spending money advertising that I have it. And, you've seen, and I don't know in your market, but like Chemical Guys has opened up these clean car garages. It's actually benefited me. Like a lot of people view them as competition. No, they don't. They're like essentially the drug dealer. They get somebody hooked and that person gets hooked on a simple chemical. And then they realize there's something better out there. And then they come find people like myself. Yep. So,
that's you're out there marketing, and that's the thing is that you've got, like you had mentioned, you've got these influencers like the names you just mentioned that are putting out a bunch of really good content, and you get a consumer that sees that content, and then now they're like, oh, who's in my local market that offers something? And now because of your marketing habits, now they're seeing you and they're like, oh, okay, this guy has it. Oh, and he has this, what so and so mentioned. Now I could go to him. Or they went to a local Chemical Guys and they're like, what else is out there? Because the only thing they could offer me is just this brand. I need some options. I need to figure out what these other pros are using. And for some reason, I'm not seeing the pros using this product A as much. So I need to go find product B, C, and D. And that's where you come along.
Yeah. And we joke about it all the time. These guys become YouTube certified. And then they come in, they're like, well, I've seen Beatmaker and this is what this guy said to use. I'm like, well, here's the actual proper way to use it. Not saying that guy was wrong, but that's how it works for him. Here's the proper way to use it.
Yeah, he wasn't getting the full potential out of the results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that. And my bad is as I'm focused on my professional side of my business, me pushing content to the internet as something I'm striving to do now. I'm trying to figure out, all right, how do I do that? My wife's teaching me all the stuff about Instagram. She's somewhat of an influencer on Instagram. She's got like 5,000 followers, and her whole stick is like thrifted fashion and sustainability and shopping your closet. And she's like a sponsored Cladwell app person. And that these women put all their clothes in the app, and you pick out one shirt, and it tells you what else to wear for the day.
An app that basically dresses you.
Yes. So. She's an attorney, and between raising 3 kids and managing my BS of the world, it helps her manage her day. She's like, one less thing I don't have to think about. So it's turned into be this is her hobby now. It seems pretty cool. So
with and that's awesome. That's really cool, and that complements sure giving you insight and perspective on things that you can bring back to your business. And speaking of brands, I mean, just to mention, what are the brands that you carry in-house or carry in general? What are the brand lineups?
So I would say I'm a Buff and Shine dealer. They're my primary pad line. I do carry other pads, but I would tell you that 80% of what I sell in-house is Buff and Shine pads. I have some Lake Country. I have some Oberk pads and Rupes pads. Primary pads I sell, and still the core business that I sell to, they're buying Buff and Shine pads. Quality pads at a fair price. You can't beat that. There are pads that are more expensive that people just, get hooked on name brand, and there's nothing wrong with that. They make good pads, but selling to, I'll call it the 85% of the world that, is production inside the dealership realm. They want a quality product and they want a fair price, and Buff and Shine kills it in that realm. I mean, that's it. They make awesome pads and they're fairly priced. Those two roads normally don't intersect, right?
No.
And this is the one time where it does. So thank you, Julio, Richard, and y'all, and Clint, my rep, and you, and y'all kill it when it comes to product, and the content you guys are bringing out helps me sell more pads. I sell P&S. I'm a distributor for PNS here in Metro Atlanta. I have Auto Magic. I still sell Blue Coral car wash chemicals. I'm a Rupes and Flex dealer. I have McGuire's. I'm McGuire's basically front guy for Metro Atlanta. Um, and then I got a lot of boutique brands. I sell G Technic, Kosh Chemi, um, oh wow, Oberk, um, Jesscar. I still sell some Moderna stuff. It's basically I have customers like, hey, I want this. Can you get it? Yep, I know where to go get it.
Supply and demand, absolutely.
Supply and demand, and it's literally what it's become. Yes, I have my favorites on everything, and because I'm buying multiple lines, I've gone through and like, hey, these are my favorites. These are like I have my industry favorite things that I like I push bead maker, I push paint gloss, or on Automagic side, I sell a ton of this product called Special Cleaner Concentrate. It's this amazing all-purpose. It's highly dilutable without any caustic soda in it, so the guys can use it for everything. You can degrease engines with it, or you can clean leather, all based on the dilution of it.
Nice.
And
safe and effective.
Yeah, and Kosh Chemi is a new brand that I'm carrying now. They have some amazing compounds and polishes and some really cool like specialty cleaners. So that's another thing that's gone real well in the last 6 months.
Yeah, and it's always having a quality brand, especially that has history from their background coming overseas now to North America, and being able to promote not just based on hype, but the quality of being the new kid on the block and being able to be the first one to bring it to market and help bring it to market is awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, so if you look at Kosh Chemi, this is probably not the best analogy. They're like almost a Simonize in Europe. They've been around for 50 years. They have awesome products. They've just never been here in the States.
Yeah.
So a mutual friend of ours, Jim Thomas, had some Kosh Chemi compounds. I saw him in like 2015. I was like, whoa, what do you got there? And he's always one of those guys that's on the forefront, always looking ahead. So he's like, I'm getting this stuff shipped over from Europe. And I played with it. It's amazing. So, I immediately run to the internet and like, hey, can you sell me this stuff? And they're like, well, Brian, we'd love to sell to you. We can't bring it to the States yet. We're not GHS compliant, which is global hazmat systems. It's how the whole world deals with hazardous material stuff and shipping internationally. So, but they were working through that. And like 2 years ago, they came to SEMA. We met. Last year they came to SEMA. Now they're a real thing. They're here.
Yep.
So I was fortunate to be put on as one of their first distributors, and I'm running with it. But I mean, my core stuff that I'm selling, is PNS and Automagic. Those are my two primary lines that I run with, and then I backfill stuff with McGuire's and whatnot, and
special requests and so forth. Now, with all these brands and the time you've had in the market, with your history of detailing, your history of selling products and seeing how the market changes with people's demands and what their interests are, going into coatings and revisiting that topic, you covered a lot of good content. But going into coatings from when you first got introduced to them to where they are now and the decisions you made as a business owner, tell me a little bit about that.
So probably first started seeing coating stuff around 2010, 2011, being this kind of skeptical cynic at the time. I was like, I don't know if that's going to sell because, I mean, Justin, my core business is car dealerships, soap, grease, tire dressing, wax. But it was intriguing. And that side of the industry it's where the cool kids play. And they're like, oh, I definitely like that, And so I started researching and looking at it, So first things I was seeing was like OptiCoat, when I'd play around with it. And I realized that the standard guy couldn't do it. There was too many variables and complications that the typical detailer would run against. This is for the educated guy, the guy that's a student that really wants to be in the game. It's they take their craft seriously. And then other stuff started coming on the market, and you were looking at it and watching it, and so about 2015. 2014, 2015, I was looking heavily, talking to companies about which product lines I was going to bring in. And I was talking heavily with CarPro, Corey down there, and had a couple conversations. And just so happens that, Jim was here and he was a large G-Technic guy. And meeting, Andy B. Cool at the time, he was kind of repping G-Technic, and then them hiring Andrew Werkheiser here. And it was in Metro Atlanta, so they're going to be based in Metro Atlanta. So them being in my backyard, I was like, hey, I want to help. I want to be part of this. And that's how the whole coding side took off for me. So been heavily in it, basically since 2015. Like selling coatings is super cool. And those boutique products and niche things, they have their place, and it's getting to be a bigger part of the future. But I think now that the bigger companies are seeing what they probably thought I thought in the beginning, that may or may not take off. They might have been skeptical about it. Now they're like, hey, yes, it's viable business.
Yeah.
And now they're coming out with coatings, and their coatings, I think in the long run, are going to come out to be either on the level of performance and ease of application. They're probably going to beat them in ease of application. I think in the long run, I think that the majors will come along and be like, hey, and that's just, that's the natural progression of bigger companies getting involved.
It's evolution.
It's evolution. I'm not saying the boutique companies are going to disappear. They're going to have to do stuff to be on the forefront of staying relevant.
Yeah. They're going to have to do some unique things to make their stuff unique and different than what these bigger box guys are coming out.
That's where they got to where they're at. So I'm like, all right, what's the next step? What are they doing next? And I'm watching what's coming down the pipe. Like the big trend, and I see a lot of really serious detailers when they kind of mastered their coding world. They're all diving off into the PPF world, right? And it's all about ticket revenue per car at your shop. PPF is way bigger revenue than correction or coding on top of doing the correction. So you correct the car, you wrap it, and then you code it. And you take a car that, could have been a couple $100 because it turns into be $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah. Your bottom line ticket becomes doubled easily, if not more.
Think about the evolution of your business. First you were probably doing regular detailers, and then corrections came along, then coatings came, and then you're in window 10, PPF. I mean, it's just multiple streams of revenue all coming to make, at the end of the day, we're talking about dollars per car.
Yeah.
How much revenue can I generate off this customer, make them happy, and make them come back?
Now, would you say, because you had mentioned earlier about, the common core detailer versus the smarter detailer getting into coatings, because that was more of what the coating companies aimed for as their installers. Do you think that coatings have also made smarter detailers because it's forced detailers to become better at the craft so they could be an installer and do the applications at the level that are known for?
So I'll track this back. Remember when Mobile Tech used to be in that basement warehouse building, and it was literally like it was 99% paintless dent removal, and detailers were the small little group of guys standing off to the side. I remember going to one of the first Mobile Techs, and I was like, I'm never coming back. This is a paintless dent removal, fraternity party. I'm not. This is not us.
True story. Yeah, it still is a fraternity party for those guys.
Yeah. So I didn't go for a couple years, but I did join the IDA, and I was like this fledgling member. I paid my membership, didn't pay attention to what was going on. And then David Pedre, he's like, man, Mobile Tech was great this year. You missed out. And I was like, no way. I don't believe it. I went, 3 years ago with you, and you and I sat off on the side of the bar and, drank bourbon, and we were laughing about all the PDR guys, which, that's their world. So, kudos to them. They were probably doing the same thing in their groups, laughing at those are the guys that wax the cars, So I think that the coatings have brought the level of education and drive for education tenfold to our industry. It's made it where like guys are seeking out knowledge and they're wanting to do better. And then wanting to do better has made them more efficient. It's made them better business people. It's everything about their game has had to climb up because the coatings were more complicated to install. You had to have the paint perfect. So then that led to like perfect paint correction and guys chasing after this 100% perfection, right? And the general consumer will only see an 80% car, and they'll run past you. Hey, looks great. And you jump in their car and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I just spent 20 hours on this. Come on, give me some, appreciation here.
So, Jimbo, yesterday he and I were talking, and we were laughing about it. The detailers are chasing after this 100% car. And he goes, you know what? I stopped doing that. He goes, about the fifth time that someone leaned over on their car and wrote their check to me on the hood that I just corrected and coded and gave me a check and smiled and left. And I was like, ugh. He couldn't believe it. So he just stopped worrying about it. And I think that's where guys are at now. Guys are getting into the coating world and they're educating themselves and they're chasing after that perfect paint. And once they do that for a while, they realize it's not 100% necessary. They can get a car in my eyes or your eyes at, 80 to 90%. And that's going to be 100% car to the consumer. And that's what a consumer wants. They want a clean, shiny, dry car.
Yeah.
They want it relatively defect free, but the defects that you and I would see, okay, through a trained eye, the general consumer doesn't see that.
Yeah. And then, because we have so many options on the market now with the chemistry of coatings, it's not about the brand. It's about what's in the bottle that accommodates the service. If that chemistry is a good fit for the service, you could downplay your service into something so simple, but yet getting your customer into something still relevant and giving them that clean, shiny, and protected kind of service without the super premium cost of a high-end coating. And people aren't looking at it that way, though. They want the big dollar, the big ticket. That's not how it works always.
Probably less than 10% of the general consumer is going to know the coating. They might have seen it in their car club or on the internet, but at the end of the day, they're coming to you, the detailer, saying, what do you have? What do you think is the best? And this is
ceramic, not brand A, brand B, brand C.
And I wanted to add, hey, I'm going to keep my car. The average consumer in the U.S. keeps a car for 39 months. So selling these coatings that are, well beyond 5 years, it's cool. Okay. But the majority of people that are buying that most likely won't have that car in 4 years. It becomes I want the best. Well, this is the best. And then they sell them that. Well, this may not be actually what they need. To me, a detail shop is about recurring revenue. So if you sell them a product and then sell them a maintenance or a maintenance plan, like, hey, I'm gonna put this coating on your car, but I want you to come back every 90 days for a real decon wash and let me maintain it. Then the coating will last longer. To you, the detail shop owner, that's the most relevant thing. I mean, if you do this great correction and coating and then you tell them that's going to last umpteen years, where does that customer go? Not back to your place. They're gone.
They're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah, so, they're pumping gas and driving and letting Mother Nature wash it.
They're like, hey, my neighbor, man, I got this stuff on my car that lasts, 8 years, and I don't have to see my guy anymore. And you're like, where'd all my customers go?
That's that traditional dealership concept in the finance department. Sold you on a paint seal for 5 years. Never have to wash it.
Yeah, F&I guys are...
not to go down that road, but you know what I mean as an example.
Yes. I run against that all the time, and the traditional F&I offering that a car dealership has is a paint sealant at best, right? We're selling ceramic programs into car dealerships now, but their traditional offering is a glorified paint sealant, and they're telling that consumer, hey, you put this on your car, we're going to charge you $1,000. You don't ever have to wax your car again. The majority of consumers buying that stuff are so excited that they're getting their new car that day. They'll sign anything to get out of that room and get in their car and go home.
Yep.
And they're like, they forget that they ever buy it. It's almost, God, and I hate to use the word Ponzi or pyramid scheme, but if you think about it, what's $7 to $10 more on their monthly payment? They just want to get in the car and go home.
Yeah. Don't worry about that when they got to start paying it. And then by the time it's too late, they got to pay it.
they got to pay it, and they don't remember it. They're just so enamored. Like, you see my new shiny car I'm about to get? I'm about to go out of here. They're posting it up on Facebook. They don't remember what they're signing. It's like the F&I department has become this huge revenue source inside the car dealerships. Car dealerships are selling cars that basically cost, waiting on their holdback money is how they really make money on the back end.
Yeah, pushing inventory.
Yeah, they're pushing inventory. It's about cars across the curb. So they make more money on their CSI score and the residual back end at the end of each quarter than they do on the car. New cars are loss leaders. They make money on parts, service, and then used car department. And it's literally the revenue model inside of a car dealership. 80% of it's driven from the service department, and then F&I, used car, and parts. New cars, they're losing money, and people don't believe me when I tell them that. I know car dealers. We talk about it all the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's the world. They live on service, okay, because that's the recurring revenue. And that's what I try to encourage the detail shops that I deal with. Think about your business, brand yourself. Don't live and die by a brand. It's great, but brand yourself. Educate your customer on why they need to come back to you and you alone on what you're going to do for them, and build that rapport with them where you're their trusted ally. Hey, car needs clean. I got a scratch on it. I'm going back to my guy.
That is that. I mean, I wish people listening to this, if they need to really let it marinate, because that's something that is huge in regards to customer retention, is that maintenance, and that is huge for business revenue, and a business motto. And if you're not doing that at a scale of either in a low level to high level, it depends on what fits your motto. If you're not exercising it, period, then you're losing money. That's right. All there is to it.
Right.
But overall, I mean, I think we're at a good time frame right now, Brian. As far as how would people reach you? Give us some plugs on how to.
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Detail Link, and it's 2 L's in there, so Detail Link, and then detaillink.com is my website. I have all the stuff that I sell on my website. And then if you ever need me, I mean, you can email me through my website. I'd be happy to walk you through anything that you never want to talk about. I like talking to people in my industry, whether it's the distributor friends that I had that do what I do, or people like yourself. I mean, I like what I do. It's very rare that people get to say that, doing it as long as I've done it.
Yeah.
I still like what I do, and I like the people I deal with. So to me, it's all about personal relationships. So even if you're not buying from me, I'll still take your phone call. If I don't, I'll call you back. Leave me a voice number, right? I'll get back to you. I always do. That's one thing I kind of try to pride myself.
Very accessible. That's 100%.
And whether I'm your customer or not, I'm gonna at least give you good advice, or what I perceive to be good advice. I may not always be right. I may not always have the correct answer, but because of my relationship with people like you and other people in the industry, I know where to go find the answer that I don't know the correct answer to. I may not be able to give you an answer unless I have to get back to you. But I know where to go get the correct answers. And all the people I've dealt with over the years, from the PB&E world, the body shop side of the world, car wash side of the world, and the detail world, somewhere in my network, I know where to seek out the answer to someone's problem.
Yeah, and that in itself 100% attests to that you're a wealth of knowledge. The 28 plus years of you being in this industry from different angles of the industry have been able to bring things to the table in perspective, and also having the network of people that you've been able to work with personally, not just and then being a phone call away is super awesome. And that's where, if you're in the Georgia area, definitely check out his location. Reach out to him if you're wanting to expand and get into the storefront approach for distributorship. Brian is a guru when it comes to that, and he'll give you some golden nuggets on how to get your the whole path started to that, and business plans, of course, getting that going. Yep. So thank you, Brian. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, really honored. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, everything. I mean, the recording you'll find on on any of our podcast platforms, Buff and Shine, Facebook page. So all of this will be there for you guys to revisit, re-listen to on your way to work or your way home from a hard day's worth of work. And thanks again. And we'll finalize this episode. And Brian, take care, and we'll talk in the future.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care.
Yep. Bye.